The next bill on the calendar for the day is House File 4984. The clerk will report the bill.
House File number 4984, number 4 on the calendar for the day, a memorial resolution requesting the Joint Committee on the Library of Congress of the United States to approve replacement of the statue of Henry Mower Rice. The first engrossment.
I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Hennepin, Representative Long.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, each state is allowed to send 2 statues to Congress to represent them. Minnesota's current 2 statues are Maria Sanford, installed in 1958, and Henry Mower Rice, installed in 1916. Like Minnesota, many states have chosen to submit 1 civic leader and 1 political leader. For example, Kansas has sent Amelia Earhart and Dwight Eisenhower. California has sent Father Junipero Serra and Ronald Reagan. Maria Sanford, I believe, has stood the test of time, an education pioneer. She was one of the first women to serve as a college professor. Mr. Mower Rice was an early leader in our state in helping facilitate statehood and served as one of its first U.S. senators. But in more than a century since Mr. Mower Rice's statue was sent, Minnesotans have accomplished much on the national stage. I believe it is indisputable that the Minnesotan who has had the greatest impact on national politics is Hubert Humphrey. Nicknamed the Happy Warrior, Humphrey was Vice President of the United States from 1965 to 1969 under President Johnson and was the Democratic standard bearer for president in 1968. He served for 23 years in the U.S. Senate, including as Majority Whip. His legislative accomplishments include authoring the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and serving as the floor manager for its passage. He proposed the Peace Corps, Medicare, and the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. Humphrey always sought bipartisan support for his legislative goals, and often his biggest antagonists were in his own party, particularly on civil rights. He made his first mark on the national stage when, as mayor of Minneapolis, he attended the 1948 Democratic National Convention, saying famously to the delegates on behalf of a civil rights plank, "To those who say we are rushing the issue of civil rights, I say to them we are 172 years too late. To those who say the civil rights program is an infringement on states' rights, I say this: the time has arrived in America for the Democratic Party to get out of the shadow of states' rights and walk forthrightly into the bright sunshine of human rights." Walkout many delegates did, though not in the way Humphrey meant, leading to a split with the Dixiecrats. The process to change a statue is that the state pays for a new statue to be made, for it to be shipped to D.C., and to ship the existing statue back to Minnesota. We took this step in the state government finance bill earlier this week. We would use the design of the Humphrey statue that stands on our state capitol grounds and would ensure that the Mower Rice statue finds a suitable location to be displayed in Minnesota. We must pass this resolution today to notify the architect of the Capitol of our state's interest in replacing our statue. I believe it's time that our state update this important representation in our nation's capital to reflect the history that has transpired since 1916 and select Hubert Humphrey to represent us. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its 3rd reading.
3rd reading, House File number 4984.
3rd reading. Discussion to the bill. I recognize the member from Meeker, Representative Erdl.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I think Majority Leader Long did a good job describing the accomplishments of Hubert Humphrey. I would just like to add a little bit. Henry Mower Rice was a fur trader, one of our first senators, and a Democrat. And I do hope that he can be returned and displayed somewhere appropriate in the state of Minnesota. But Hubert Humphrey was a man whose career at this point in time is much more impactful and relevant to Minnesota and to our history today. He was, as Representative Long pointed out, a leader in many of the great issues facing our state and our country in the 20th century. Came within a whisker of being elected president in 1968, the first real political campaign that I was involved in, for Richard Nixon. But his presence in Statuary Hall, I think, would be much more meaningful to the people of Minnesota and to the people of this nation. Now, I only met Senator Humphrey one time. It was in between his years as vice president and his next election to the Senate again. And he came to speak at St. Cloud State when I was a student there. And at that time, I was involved in student government. And after his speech, there was a reception in one of the student union rooms. And there was a line, and there was a young lady with me. I think her name was Mary. I can't remember. But we walked through the reception line and shook Hubert's hand and said hello, talked to him a little bit about my political persuasions and things that I'd been doing in student government. And then we mingled a little bit. And then I can remember I was going out the door to leave. And from across the room comes the voice of Hubert Humphrey. "Watch out for him, Mary. He's a Republican." My only real personal impact with Hubert Humphrey, but certainly he had an impact on this state and its history, and I'm very remember many of these things from when I was growing up. So I urge approval of this. Thank you.
I recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Coulter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Excuse me. I'm really proud that we're going to be passing this bill today. Hubert Humphrey's contributions to our state and nation show his dedication to our shared values as Minnesotans. He truly represents the best of us, a happy warrior dedicated to the politics of joy. He carried himself with a purpose that endeared him to Minnesotans and Americans across the political spectrum. One of my favorite stories is that after he gave his final speech to a joint session of Congress in 1977, when he was clearly unwell and stricken with cancer, the first member of Congress that he embraced was Barry Goldwater, a man as conservative, undoubtedly, as Humphrey was liberal. This bill carries a certain level of personal importance for me as well. I don't imagine it comes as a great surprise that I would identify with a Midwestern liberal who's known for talking too much. But he was also the first politician that my mother heard speak when he came to campaign in her hometown of Gibbon in Representative Harder's district. I also learned a few years ago that when he was mayor of Minneapolis and established one of the nation's first civil rights commissions, he appointed to chair that commission Reuben Youngdahl. And those of you who are connected with the Twin Cities Lutheran scene will maybe recognize that name. Reuben Youngdahl was a longtime senior pastor at the church that I grew up attending and taught Sunday school at for many years, Mount Olivet Lutheran Church in Minneapolis. Hubert Humphrey's life and work, reaching some of the most uplifting moments in politics and some of the deepest disappointments, remind us of how politics ought to be an experience grounded in our common humanity, focused on making things better for people. At a time when optimism and hope are in short supply and cynicism and resignation are in overabundance, his is an example that we can and should point to. And I happen to bring my old dog-eared copy of his memoirs because I think of a line from this very often. "I have enjoyed my life, its disappointments outweighed by its pleasures. I have loved my country in a way that some people consider sentimental and out of style. I still do, and I remain an optimist, with joy, without apology, about this country and about the American experiment in democracy." Thank you.
I recognize the author of the bill, Representative Long.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members, for a good discussion. Appreciated the discussion we've had in committee as well, and I would urge support.
There being no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll. The chief clerk will call the names of the members voting remotely.
Carroll.
Carroll, aye.
Carroll, I. Hewitt.
Hewitt, aye.
Hewitt, I. Cagle.
Cagle, aye.
Cagle, I.
The clerk will close the roll. There being 98 yeas and 25 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to.